The House will please come to order. Members, please take their seats. Sergeant at Arms.
The House is now in session.
The members will please rise and be led in prayer by James L.J. Brown, Senior Site Pastor, the Mount Leeds, Portsmouth, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, led by the delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring.
Good afternoon. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today first thankful that you decided to wake us up this morning and allowed us and blessed us to see another day. And on this afternoon, we are also thankful for our senators and delegates who are here today, who have the opportunity to come together to strategize and plan ways in which to progress our communities forward. God, I ask today that you would grant them all with your wisdom to make the right decisions, wisdom to ask the right questions, wisdom to make the right vote on any particular bill or piece of legislation. For the Bible tells us, for wisdom will enter your heart and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. So we ask today, God, that you give them knowledge as well, Father. Give them not just the wisdom, but the know-how. Grant them with the understanding and knowledge that it will take to implement all of their amazing ideas, plans, and strategies. Give guidance, Father, to each and every person represented here today. Guide their thoughts, guide their emotions, guide their moral compass. I hear in your word where it says, for lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. So God, raise up advisors. Show us people who can give sound advice. Place people on this Zoom that even as we gather virtually today, who can give proper instruction and direction as to how they can continue to move our state forward. And lastly, God, I ask that you would give them strength. Give them the strength that they will need to face daunting tasks, strength that they will need to face tough assignments. I know that meetings, decisions, and votes will not always be easy, if ever. So God, give the strength to push through, the strength to endure, the strength that it will take to carry out their individual and collective assignments, goals, and vision. I ask that you keep them, bless them, and protect them. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The members will please answer the roll call by indicating your presence on the electronic voting device.
Madam Speaker,
Mr. Clerk.
now I'll read the names of those not voting or who have registered their attendance. Delegate Avoli.
Present.
Delegate Avoli is present. Delegate Ayala.
Present.
Delegate Ayala is present. Delegate Carter. Delegate Carter. Delegate Cole.
Present.
Delegate Cole is present. Delegate Converse Fowler. Delegate Converse Fowler. Delegate Hurst.
Present.
Delegate Hurst is present. Delegate Rasul. Delegate Rasul.
Delegate Converse Fowler is present.
Delegate Converse Fowler is present. Delegate Tyler.
Present.
Delegate Tyler is present. Delegate Watts. Delegate Watts. Madam Speaker, a quorum is present.
Pursuant to House Rule 3, I have examined and approved the Journal for the House of Delegates for Wednesday, February 10th, 2021, and Thursday, February 11th, 2021. Motions and resolutions under Rule 39, pursuant to the provisions of Rule 40, are now in order. The clerk will please announce the first morning hour order of business and including any clerk's announcements or communications.
Madam Speaker, first morning hour order of business. Just a few announcements. Please mute your mics unless you are speaking. Members, please turn on your camera so we know you're here and we can see you when you're speaking. And the call-in number, again, is 8469-1560 for any technology issues.
The delegate from Norfolk, Delegate Jones.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for an introduction.
Delegate Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the House. I have the privilege of introducing James L.J. Brown, who just gave our prayer a moment ago. James is a native of Chesapeake, Virginia. He is a proud graduate of Indian River High School and received his Master's of Divinity from the Virginia Union University Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology in 2011. He serves as the senior site pastor of the Mount Portsmouth in Portsmouth, Virginia, with his wife, Keisha. James has a strong passion for educating his generation, which motivated him to launch a personal outreach ministry. In 2016, he also began a weekly TV talk show entitled The Kickback, which airs locally every Saturday. In addition, he serves as a board member of the K.W. Brown Ministries, where he created the Achievers Scholarship for college-bound high school graduates to provide opportunities for advancement and support in their education. He also serves as a board member of the Faith Partners Network of Norfolk State University, the Faith-Based Community Outreach Board, as well as the Elders House, a faith-based nonprofit for at-risk teens, and the Black Visionaries for Change Foundation. In 2011, he married his best friend Keisha, and they have two beautiful sons, KJ and Jackson, who I know very well, and they are incredible young men. But more importantly, in a few weeks, they will welcome another addition to the family, a baby daughter named Kennedy. So we are all very, very excited for the Brown family. I'd ask that we all give him a warm house welcome this morning.
Thank you, Delegate Jones, and welcome to Pastor James J. Brown. Thank you for joining us and for inspiring us today, and thank you for all that you do throughout the Commonwealth and for the community at large. The delegate from Culpeper, Delegate Freitas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for the purpose of a motion.
Delegate Freitas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Late last year, William Clark Chase V, who those of us who knew him well knew him as Clark, passed away. He would have been turning 31 on January 14th of this year. Unfortunately, in 2012, Clark had been the victim of a severe accident, a car accident, which had left him in an incredible amount of pain. But despite all this, he was still the Clark that we knew, who believed in his community, loved his family, and worked incredibly hard to help not only himself recover, but help others in the same situation, as did the entire Chase family. Unfortunately, late last year, he lost his battle, Madam Speaker, and the Chase family has continued to use this as an opportunity to reach out and assist other people who are struggling with the pain as a result of accidents and a result of things beyond their control. And so, Madam Speaker, today, with the Chase family looking on, I would like them to know that we grieve with them, we mourn with them, we honor them and their efforts to help people within our community, and I move that we adjourn in the memory of William Clark Chase V.
Thank you, Delegate Freitas. Delegate Freitas moves that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the honor and memory of Clark Chase V. All those in support of this motion shall please rise. The motion is agreed to. Thank you, Delegate Freitas. Pursuant to House Rule 30, the Journal shall reflect that the following members are away on pressing personal business and are granted leave from today's session: Delegates Rasool and Watts. The clerk will please announce the next order of business.
Second morning hour order of business. The next order of business is the announcement of member requests to move legislation from any uncontested calendar to the regular calendar. Madam Speaker, on page 3, Senate Bill 1156 has been moved to the regular calendar.
The clerk will please announce the next order of business.
Madam Speaker, the third morning hour order of business. The next order of business is the announcement of requests by members for legislation to go by for the day and the subsequent motion by the majority leader. And we have none, Madam Speaker.
The clerk will please announce the next order of business.
fourth morning hour order of business. The next order of business is recognition of members' requests for points of personal privilege. And the Speaker requests members to use their request to speak buttons to signify their desire to be recognized.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Simon.
Madam Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Simon, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, members of the House, I have good news. Virginia election officials just released their post-election report for the November 3rd election. And they concluded, the bottom line is they concluded Virginia conducted the most safe, secure, and successful election in the history of the Commonwealth on November 3rd, 2020. Let's talk about that for just a second. Successful. We had new legislation in place, and we made new initiatives starting at about this time last year to increase absentee voting and early voting opportunities, to make it easier to register to vote electronically and so forth. And as a result, 4,413,388 votes were cast. That's a record number of overall votes cast. 426,000 new voters registered this year, and what's sort of striking about that number is 77.7% of those newly registered voters actually cast a ballot this year. So these weren't just sort of registration drives where people were getting signed up for the sake of signing them up. These were people that were enthusiastic and wanted to be able to cast their votes, and they did. Let's talk about what a safe election this was. 2.6 million people took advantage of some form of early voting this year. And again, Madam Speaker, members, that could not have happened without the leadership of folks like Delegate Herring and all of us that supported HB1 last year to allow for no excuse absentee voting. Localities across the Commonwealth that increased their satellite voting locations for people to come and vote early. And as a result, nearly 60% of voters were able to cast their votes without having to crowd the polling places and cram into small spaces on election day. So they were able to vote safely and securely, Madam Speaker. This was the most secure election. We conduct post-election audits. We have logic and testing of the machines, and all those results came back with flying colors. We heard some thoughts and some allusions to problems when some localities, due to the new volume of absentee ballot requests, sent some voters more than one ballot. But an audit shows that zero, not one person attempted to cast more than one of those absentee ballots. So the election was great. It went as well as you could possibly imagine. Thanks in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of record turnout and one of the highest attention elections that we've ever seen. And Madam Speaker, that's no accident. That's the result of the hard work by our elections officials, which I'll come back to in a second. Madam Speaker, members of the House, I'll also say that I recognize today is budget day. And when I was a member of the minority, I looked forward to budget day. It was my favorite day of session. And it was sort of the one day that, even as a member of the minority, I got to play. Right? I got to put amendments on the floor. I got to take objections out. I had a chance to speak to them. And it was a lot of fun. I will admit, I enjoyed getting a chance to play with the big boys on budget day, even as a member of the minority. But today, Madam Speaker, members of the House, I want to draw your attention to a budget amendment that's going to hit the floor that I think is very serious and is very important that we pay attention to. And it suggests, I think the game here, having played this myself, is to continue to push forward a narrative that casts doubt on the integrity of our election process. Right? In spite of the report that we've gotten, in spite of all the data to the contrary, in spite of all the evidence that says we just conducted the most secure, most successful, and safest election in the history of the Commonwealth, we continue to have folks push a narrative that says that there's some sort of fraud going on, that there's suspicion, that we can't trust the results, that we're going to have dead people casting ballots. Now, Speaker, it's the allegation, the narrative's unfounded, it's unfair, it's without merit, and it's not just fun and games. Now, Speaker, members of the House, I know that we're all immersed right now in session. Very few of us have time to watch the news. But at the end of the day, I go home, and I hope that you all will too. And I do get the clips. I get to see the highlights from what's going on in Washington. And I've seen the Virginia House managers putting on their case. And the video and the images we're seeing are shocking and disturbing. And Madam Speaker, that arises because folks continue to push conspiracy theories and a narrative that says that our election results can't be trusted, that there's fraud going on, that there's malfeasance happening, and there's no evidence to support it. And Madam Speaker, I would encourage the members of the minority that continue to push this narrative to please cut it out. Please cut it out. If you watch the results of continuing to push this false narrative, it's dangerous. People's lives are being lost. It's not just about scoring political points. It's not just about trying to get a mailer out for next year's election. The elections that we just had in November here in Virginia, I'm going to say it again, were the most secure, the safest, and the most successful in Virginia history. That's the narrative that the public needs to hear. That's what we need to be telling folks. That's what needs to be understood about our election. And the report, I think you should all read it, concludes that citizens in the Commonwealth and across the nation owe their registrars and their elections officials a great debt of gratitude, their sacrifice and dedication to free and fair elections. Madam Speaker, I couldn't agree more. Madam Speaker, I hope that it's the pleasure of the body to continue to thank and join me in thanking our elections officials and registrars and everyone for putting on great and fair elections. And can we please stop pushing these false narratives, because we've all seen how dangerous they can be. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Delegate Simon. Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Watts.
Hey, Madam Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Watts, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May the Journal reflect that Delegate Watts is present at today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Watts. The delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Gilbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I suppose Delegate Simon is taking more than the 2 minutes he is going to afford us to discuss the amendment to which he referred, so I will do likewise. Madam Speaker, no one condones what happened at the Capitol on this past January. No one. On our side condones that. No one thinks that that was right. The narratives about a stolen election, I think, have given way to something much different. For those of you who may not have seen it, Time Magazine recently wrote an article, a comprehensive article that pretty much validated many of the concerns that people have about not the fact that this election was stolen, so much that the political left, the media, industry, big tech, all sort of came together to ensure an outcome. And for those of you who have not read the Time Magazine article, I encourage you to do so, because it validates many of the concerns that people rightfully have about how, not that this election was stolen, but that how it was manipulated. And one of the key components of that manipulation, Madam Speaker, was the lengths to which those on the other side went to change the rules of the game, whether it was legislatively or more often in court. Even here in Virginia, we saw people go to court to change the rules by which people cast votes, notably not having to have a witness requirement on an absentee ballot anymore. These are meaningful, impactful, serious, very real changes to our election system that people took note of. They may have misinterpreted many of them, but the lengths to which people went to change the game had a very real impact on this election. And so the amendment to which the gentleman refers is one that is very, very simple. And it says something I think more than just the text embodies. It says, to what lengths are our colleagues on the other side willing to go to ensure that the rules of the game are as loose as possible so that they can avail themselves of those changed rules. And if they are not even willing to remove dead people from our voter rolls, Madam Speaker, to me it says a whole lot about the lengths to which they are willing to go. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Gilbert. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Tran.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Tran, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Speaker and members of the House, today we celebrate the Lunar New Year. About 1.5 billion people around the world are celebrating today the Year of the Ox, including many Asian Americans in Virginia. I recall celebrating the New Year, or Ang Tat, growing up. We would clean the house until it shined, and my parents would buy bông mai and bông đào, bông cúc, chrysanthemums and peach and mai blossoms, filling our house with their fragrance. My mom would cook a feast, traditional dishes that include pickled vegetables, sticky rice cakes, caramelized pork, and bitter squash soup. And she and I would wear our áo dài, traditional Vietnamese gowns, as we celebrated with family and friends. This year, clearly we won't be able to celebrate in person, but we are observing the Lunar New Year and dealing with targeted violence and hate crimes against Asian Americans. This has been fueled by the rhetoric of our past president, who loudly and wrongly called the pandemic the Chinese virus or Kung flu. By April 2020, realizing there was an increase in hate crimes against Asian Americans, multiple groups formed Stop AAPI Hate. They've received countless reports of racism, hate speech, discrimination, and physical attacks against Asian Americans. An 84-year-old Thai American in San Francisco was the victim of an unprovoked assault. He was taking a morning walk and shoved to the ground so hard that he sustained serious injuries and died a few days later. An Asian American woman in Brooklyn was taking out the trash when someone threw acid at her, leaving her with chemical burns. A 64-year-old Vietnamese American grandmother was assaulted and robbed in broad daylight as she was getting into her car in San Jose, California. A 61-year-old Filipino American man was riding the subway in New York City when he was attacked with a box cutter. Asian American businesses across this country have also been vandalized. Asian Americans Advancing Justice has reported more than 3,000 hate incidents since late April 2020 based on their self-reporting system. Let's compare this data with the latest data available from the FBI, which shows 216 reported anti-Asian hate crimes in 2019. We all know these types of crimes are often underreported, but I think it gives you a sense of how anti-Asian hate crimes have skyrocketed during this pandemic. As I mentioned, this is the Year of the Ox, and the ox is a symbol of hard work and perseverance. I find that really appropriate for this year. It'll take our hard work and perseverance to get through the pandemic, and we know it takes hard work and perseverance to bend the moral arc towards justice. And as we celebrate the Lunar New Year during a legislative session, we're continuing to make strides on healthcare access, criminal justice reform, voting rights, and environmental justice. Let us continue working in solidarity to fight hatred, advance justice for all of our communities, and celebrate the strength of a diverse and inclusive Virginia. Chúc mừng năm mới, Happy New Year. I wish you a healthy, peaceful, and joyful New Year. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much, Delegate Tran, for educating us, informing us, and also inspiring us today, and Happy New Year to you and to so many others. The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Price.
Yes, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Price, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to associate myself with the remarks made about voting from the delegate from Fairfax. And to answer the other delegate's rebuttal question, what lengths are we willing to go to? I will say that the lengths that most of us are willing to go to include to remove the obstacles that have been put in place that made the rules of the game unfair for many communities, to undo the targeted efforts of voter suppression that have plagued our Commonwealth since voting was even a thing, and to make sure that all who want to vote can do so easily, safely, and without intimidation. We will go to great lengths to protect our democracy and make sure it's fair and accessible. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Price. The delegate from Sussex, Delegate Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Chairwoman Tyler, you have the floor.
Thank you. To continue with our celebration of Black History Month. Oftentimes during Black History Month, we read books or papers about legendary Afro-American heroes, and we remember their contributions to society, and we recognize their dedication to making this world a better place. However, most of the time, they are recognized for their achievements after they have passed away. My mother-in-law's famous words are, "Give me my flowers while I can smell them." Madam Speaker, each day here in the Virginia General Assembly, we walk and we talk and we work with famous African-American men who I call walking Black history. They are continuing to fight for voter rights, civil rights, equality, and social justice, just like Martin Luther King Jr. and Congress John Lewis. Matter of fact, they are good at putting up fights with dignity and respect for the less fortunate and our children. Madam Speaker, in the General Assembly, among the total 100 state elected officials, there are only 10 Black men, 1 in the Senate and 9 in the House of Delegates. I call them my Virginian legendary heroes, and I thank each one of them for their service to the Commonwealth. But let me tell you briefly a little about them. Senator Lionel Spruill, one of 15 children, who was elected in 1994 to the House of Delegates, and now serves as the only African-American male in the Senate, representing the 5th District, serving Chesapeake and Suffolk. Delegate Alex Askew, raised by his mother, a public school teacher, represents Virginia Beach, the 85th House District. He is dedicated to fighting for affordable health care, quality education, economic opportunities, and a safe environment for all. Delegate Jeff Bourne, an attorney who grew up in Southwest Virginia, represents the 71st District in Richmond. He is a champion for education, environmental protection, and criminal justice and housing equality. Delegate Joshua Cole, an associate minister, represents the 28th District, serving Stanford County and the city of Fredericksburg. He believes in fighting for equity, diversity, inclusion, and opportunities, and standing up for Virginia's families. Delegate Cliff Hayes, a government technology expert in public safety, represents the 77th District, serving the city of Chesapeake. He's the chairperson of the Joint Commission on Technology. The first thing friends and family will tell you is that he has never forgotten where he came from or who he's fighting for throughout his life. Delegate Clinton Jenkins, a real estate owner, represents the 76th District, serving Suffolk, Virginia. He's a veteran of the United States Army and proud to serve his country. He believes in whatever you do, put God first and he will direct your path. Delegate Don Scott, an attorney representing the 80th District, serving Portsmouth. He's a former United States naval officer. He understands integrity, service, and sacrifice. He's an advocate and community leader for criminal justice reform. Delegate Jay Jones, an attorney representing the 89th District, serving Norfolk. He's a descendant of slaves and from a family of attorneys who are pioneers of civil rights. Like his forebearer before him, Delegate Jones is dedicated to ensuring his community and the Commonwealth embrace everyone, no matter who you are, where you come from, or what you look like. Delegate Luke Torrey, who has been a pastor for 35 years, representing the 52nd House District, serving Prince William County. In 2020, he was appointed by Speaker Philip Horn to serve as the first African American to chair the House Appropriations Committee. Last but not least, Delegate Lamont Bagg, President of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, representing the 74th District, including Charles City, parts of Henrico, and the city of Richmond. He is dedicated to the mission of the Legislative Black Caucus, which is to improve economics, educational, political, and social conditions of Americans and other underrepresented groups in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Madam Speaker, the race is not given to the swift nor the battle to the strong, but the one who holds out to the end. I'm honored to serve with these distinguished and famous African American men in the General Assembly. I pray for their strength as they continue to fight and make Virginia a better place to live. Madam Speaker, I will end with the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Anyone can be famous because anyone can serve. This is my moment in Black history. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Tyler. The delegate from Loudoun, Delegate LaRocque.
Madam Speaker?
Yes, Delegate LaRocque.
Again, sorry to be slow on the unmute. I request a point of personal privilege.
Delegate LaRocque, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd just like to add a little bit to this narrative that's developing today relating to the integrity of the vote. I'm not sure what report the delegate from Fairfax was referencing that allegedly established that this was one of the best elections conducted most credibly, but I'd like to see that report. I think I have shared with others that after the enactment of the Senator Howell bill, which changed the way that many of the absentee ballots would be treated, there were those who questioned whether that enactment was proper, given that it was treated as general appropriations law, which by any standard, I think reasonable standard, it was not. So it was enacted immediately as opposed to waiting 4 months as is required by our Virginia Constitution. Madam Speaker, I'd like to speak to another report that has caught my attention, I think is worth introducing into this conversation, whereby we ascertain whether this election was conducted in a completely appropriate manner. As I mentioned the other day when the delegate from Alexandria was speaking to the matter of why 16-year-olds should be allowed to register, and trusted the system that would perhaps remove them from the registered voter list if they had been discovered that they had moved. I referenced Virginia Law 24.2-428A, and I'll just read this section of that is relevant to this conversation. It says the program, referencing the list maintenance, the program shall be completed no later than 90 days prior to a federal election. That program they're referencing is purging voter rolls by comparing them to the national change of address list that's maintained by the post office. Well, my own personal interest caused me to ask questions of my own registrar and of Chris Piper, who's head of our Department of Elections, and he directed me to a report, and the name of the report is the Department of Elections Annual List Maintenance Report, September 1 through 2019 through August 31, 2020. In that report, which was obviously prior to the election, he pointed out that it was the intention of the department to make that adjustment to voter lists in December of 2020, which obviously is after the presidential election. He failed to mention in that report that although they might be complying with the annual requirement, that they were neglecting, as required by law, that adjustment to the voter roll be made no later than 3 months prior to a presidential election. That's a pretty significant thing to overlook. Now, the gentleman from Fairfax may think that that is insignificant, but I'm not sure. I'm quite sure I would not agree with that. When the law requires that a list be maintained prior to a presidential election, and the law is ignored, and the report that's issued gives no reason, then it is certainly a reasonable basis to challenge the outcome of the integrity, I guess, would be the proper challenge. So, again, I look forward to seeing the report that the gentleman from Fairfax is offering, and I also look forward to hear back from Chris Piper as to why the purge that is required by Virginia law was not completed. And if the opportunity arises, I'll certainly share what I hear in response to that question with this body. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members of the body.
The delegate from Clark, Delegate Goditis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think it is one of the biggest ironies of our time in this session that we are listening to someone speak who not only attended the riot, the day of the riot on January 6th, but encouraged people to be there and actually described the day as outstanding. And I quote Winchester Star newspaper. And again, I quote in his letter to Vice President Pence, he asked to nullify our Virginia election against all evidence. And I wish to comfort the residents of the three counties whose in part I represent, Loudoun, Clark, and Frederick. I wish to comfort them. I always invite them to come to me, and many of them do come to me with constituent problems. I think it's sad that we have to listen to this in this House, and my fellow members have my sympathy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Goditis. The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Ayala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Ayala, you have the floor.
Thank you. I too would like to echo the comments of Delegate Simon, Delegate Goditis, and so many others that have spoken against the messaging. I want to talk about it from a different perspective. Since the elections, you've heard many groups that have been just really quiet about the election has been stolen. We saw firing of CISA head Chris Krebs personally debunk many of these messaging tactics that have been taken to just create chaos. And to the previous delegate's point, cause something that says, like, causes chaos in our democracy. When we start to talk about that our elections and its infrastructures don't count, you start to peel away at the very fabric in which this country and this Commonwealth has been founded on. We've heard the reports. We here in the Commonwealth have systems that have, we are able to audit them. We have a paper ballot system to prove that our elections here in the Commonwealth have not been stolen. And so for us to consistently, and I'm just echoing sentiments that have been spoken about the state of our elections, just every day peeling away at its fabric, bothers me. My dad served this country, my family served this country, and fought for these very freedoms that we're talking about here on this floor. And for that just hits me in the gut. I find it disrespectful to our forefathers, our Constitution, and the work that we do in this body. I too echo the sentiments of stopping and ceasing these lies and untruths that are very harmful to the very things that we as elected officials in this body count on to elect us and to serve. So with that, Madam Speaker, I would just say, look, I could be no more prouder of the election officials, the infrastructure that has been put in place by the Commonwealth, our volunteers that have worked, especially in the midst of a pandemic, and, just grateful for our current body and our democracy as it is today. I think it's important that we continue to address these untruths every day and to just restate a conclusion. There's been no evidence of voter fraud in this year's general election. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Ayala. The delegate from Virginia Beach, Delegate Davis.
Madam Speaker, I rise for a brief point of personal privilege.
Delegate Davis, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I won't address a number of things that the delegate from Fairfax mentioned, but what I would like to mention is we talk about the integrity of the ballot box. And what matters just isn't the reality of the integrity of the ballot box, but also the perception of the integrity of the ballot box. You know, when you look at a simple bill that a senator puts in that does nothing but say that we, in a timely manner, are going to remove those that are no longer with us from the voter rolls, and then you see it die. My question is, what is the other side so scared of? If there isn't an issue, if there is no fraud, why not take that off the table for Virginians that are concerned about it? It's something so simple. And when the other delegate from Hampton says, we just want to suppress voters, well, honestly, yes, I want to suppress anyone that's passed away and no longer with us from voting. And that's all this bill addresses. So my request for the other side is simple. I appreciate everything this body does to protect the integrity and the reality of the integrity of the ballot box. But those Virginians out there, they have concerns. And their concerns are founded in the perception of the integrity because of some of the issues that get brought up. And if there's no issue with taking those no longer with us off the ballot box or off the voter rolls, then we just need to do it. And I'd ask those on the other side that if they don't have an issue, if they truly want to have voter integrity, then to put their vote today where their mouth is. Because there's no harm coming from making sure that we get people off the ballots, off the voter rolls in a timely manner, as anyone would anticipate and expect us to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Davis. I'll just warn everyone, we're running up against a deadline. We've got a 1 o'clock briefing. There's about 6 people in the queue. I will moving on to the delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, rising for a brief point of personal privilege.
Delegate Mullen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am, as I hope everyone in this body is, deeply against zombies. I'm against them walking our streets, eating our brains, and certainly voting. But this is an absolutely ridiculous conversation. The last year that we had any records from our own VDH said that there were 69,353 people who died in Virginia. The rate of the return and the win by President Joe Biden was 451,138. To put that in briefer perspective, if everyone who died voted, it wouldn't have changed the election. This is such a bizarre argument. I wonder if the next response is that we should be gathering all of our non-perishable foods and preparing for the next election. I will note that former Attorney General Barr said that there was no evidence of widespread fraud anywhere in the country. And the reason that people start to have questions about this election is when elected officials raise it as a question over and over again in the public, on Fox News, on all of the different Republican talking places. And our elections are free, fair, and very secure. There is absolutely no reason that we need to be having this argument other than, in my opinion, a deep and well-reasoned fear of zombies. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Delegate Mullen. Will the clerk please call the calendar? And for those people who are still in the queue, we'll have time after the budget later. The clerk will please call the calendar.
Calendar of the Virginia House of Delegates for Friday, February 12th, 2021. Senate bills on third reading, uncontested calendar. Senate Bill 1134 on page 1 of the calendar. A bill to amend and reenact Sections 2 and 4 of the first enactment of Chapter 265 and Sections 2 and 4 of the first enactment of Chapter 408 of the Acts Assembly of 1992, relating to the issuance of Commonwealth of Virginia Article 10, Section 9C refunding bonds, subject to the provisions of Article 10, Sections 9A and 9C of the Constitution of Virginia. Emergency. Reported from the Committee on Appropriations.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Torian.
Oh, shucks. I'm sorry. Madam Speaker, can I go back temporarily, please?
All those in favor of SB 1134 going by temporarily shall say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, SB 1134 goes by temporarily. Mr. President.
Page 2 of the calendar, Senate Bill 1145, a bill to authorize the issuance of bonds in an amount up to $34,160,000 plus financing costs pursuant to Article 10, Section 9C of the Constitution of Virginia for paying costs of acquiring, constructing, and equipping revenue-producing capital projects at institutions of higher learning of the Commonwealth, to authorize the Treasury Board, buying with the consent of the Governor, to fix the details of such bonds, to provide for the sale of such bonds, and to issue notes to borrow money in anticipation of the issuance of the bonds, to provide for the pledge of the net revenues of such capital projects in the full faith, credit, and taxing power of the Commonwealth for the payment of such bonds, to provide that the interest income on such bonds and notes shall be exempt from all taxation by the Commonwealth and any political subdivision thereof. Emergency. Reported from the Committee on Appropriations.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Torian.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Speaker. These are administrative procedures that are enacted during each session when we enter into session.
Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 1155, page 2 of the calendar. A bill to create a 6-year capital outlay plan for projects to be funded entirely or partially from general fund supported resources and to repeal Chapter 1134 of the Acts Assembly of 2020. Reported from Appropriations with a substitute.
These are Senate bills.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Torian.
Again, Madam Speaker, this is a procedural bill that we enact upon each time that we enter into a legislative session.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the committee substitute is agreed to. Mr. Chair, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 1156 on page 3 of the calendar. That has been moved to the regular calendar.
Bill.
Senate Bill 1251, page 3 of the calendar. A bill to amend and reenact sections 51.1-124.3, 51.1-157, 51.1-168, 51.1-301, and 51.1-308 of the Code of Virginia relating to Virginia Retirement System, technical amendments, reported from Appropriations.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Torian.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Speaker. This bill simply addresses issues relative to the Virginia retirement system, and I move the technical amendment.
I don't believe there's a technical amendment. So, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you.
Returning to page 1 of the calendar, Senate Bill 1134 was passed by temporarily. A bill to amend and reenact sections 2 and 4 of the first enactment of Chapter 265 and sections 2 and 4 of the first enactment of Chapter 408 of the Acts Assembly of 1992 relating to the issuance of Commonwealth of Virginia, Article 10, Section 9C refunding bonds, subject to the provisions of Article 10, Sections 9A and 9C of the Constitution of Virginia. Emergency. Reported from the Committee on Appropriations.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Torian.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Speaker, my apologies for earlier, but this is our bond bill, and as I indicated to you earlier, these are procedure bills that we act upon each legislative session.
Shall the bills pass? Mr. Clerk.
Madam Speaker, I will now call on the delegates who did not see voting. Delegate Brewer. Delegate Brewer.
Aye.
Delegate Brewer votes aye. Delegate Cole.
Aye.
Delegate Cole votes aye. Delegate Guzman.
Aye.
Delegate Guzman votes aye. Delegate Hurst.
Aye.
Delegate Hurst votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Madam Speaker, 100 yeas, no nays. Abstentions 0.
Ayes 100, nays 0, abstentions 0. The bills are passed.
Madam Speaker, turning to regular calendar, Senate Bill 1156 has been moved to the regular calendar on page 3. A bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding in Title 59.1 a chapter numbered 22.17, consisting of a section numbered 59.1-284.38, relating to creation of the Technology Development Grant Fund. Reported from the Committee on Appropriations.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Torian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a project that was approved by the MEI Commission and has been approved in the budget as well. Thank you.
Shall the bill pass? Mr. Clerk.
Madam Speaker, I will now call on the members that I not see voting. Delegate Avoli.
Yay.
I'm sorry, Delegate Avoli?
Yay.
Delegate Avoli votes aye. Delegate Cole.
Aye.
Delegate Cole votes aye. Delegate Farris. Delegate Farris has voted aye. Delegate Guzman.
Aye.
Delegate Guzman votes aye. Delegate Hurst.
Aye.
Delegate Hurst votes aye.
The clerk will please close the roll.
Madam Speaker, 9 yeas, 10 nays.
Ayes 90, nays 10, abstentions 0. The bill passes. Does the clerk have any additional announcements before we move on?
Madam
Delegate
Speaker.
from Alexandria.
No additional announcements.
The delegate from Alexandria.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that the House stand in recess until 1:50.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring, moves that the House stand in recess until 1:50. As many as favor the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion is agreed to. The House stands in recess until 1:50.
And Madam Speaker,